Among the tragedies of the American bombing of Japan in 1945 was the loss of a painting of 5 sunflowers by Van Gogh, Japan's favourite artist.
£22.5 million. At £22.5 million. Last time, at £22.5 million, at £22,500,000 for the last time.
Lot 43, this painting of 14 sunflowers by Van Gogh, made almost 3 times the previous record price for a picture.
An export license in all probability will be applied for.
The buyer was from Japan, the Yasuda Fire and Marine Insurance Company of Tokyo. But had they bought a new national treasure or an expensive fake?
Is there any doubt about its authenticity?
What a time to ask. No, I don't think there is.
The authenticity question may have seemed a joke at the time, but doubts were already being expressed.
It's a very funny, muddy picture, and Vincent van Gogh was not muddy. Okay, you say, well, it needs to be cleaned and all that. That's not the case. There's something, it's not put together and it doesn't have that snap.
The latest fake scandal hit the auction rooms when Van Gogh's Garden at Auvers was put up for sale in Paris. Press coverage of the sale sparked a media witch hunt of suspicious Van Goghs. It had been suggested that the garden was a fake before the sale, but the auctioneers carried on regardless. The bidding didn't go high enough, and it wasn't actually sold. Richard Rodriguez, a French lawyer and connoisseur, thought it should never have been put up for auction in the first place. He objected, saying a recently published book doubted the picture's authenticity. Since I was told the sunflowers was a fake back in 1987, I've been longing to have a go at it. As a journalist, fakes have always been my speciality. The Van Gogh fakes were made at the turn of the century, shortly after his death. They got muddled up with his real work, and everyone's assumed ever since that they were genuine. Today, this has produced a fantastic muddle. Estimates of the number of fakes have gone as high as 100. Leading scholars agree that the fakes exist, but they fight among themselves over which they are, and complain bitterly about each other's ignorance in private. The Van Gogh Museum has an embargo on certain family documents. No one has been allowed access to some of the key evidence. Museums and sale rooms hide behind confidentiality clauses. There's just too much money and too many reputations at stake. The case of the Yasuda sunflowers highlights all these problems. The painting was unwrapped in Tokyo with all the respect due to the greatest painter in the world and an enormous sum of money. The evidence against this picture seems to me overwhelming. There are 3 versions of this vase of 14 sunflowers. Vincent often copied his own pictures, so on the face of it there is nothing surprising about him repeating the subject. But the Yasuda painting is the only one not mentioned in his letters, the only one that is unsigned, and is thought by connoisseurs to be visually inferior to the other 2. There are no doubts about the version in the London National Gallery, which was painted in August 1888. It was bought directly from the Van Gogh family. The Yasuda picture is a copy of it, whether by Vincent or not. For a period in the 1980s, the Yasuda painting hung on loan alongside the original. Everyone could see it was not as good. The third painting of 14 sunflowers has never left the family collection and is now in the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. The almost daily letters that Vincent wrote to his art dealer brother Theo never mention the Yasuda picture, only the London and Amsterdam versions. There are essentially three ways to investigate whether a painting is a fake: by visual comparison, by studying documentary evidence, and by scientific tests. All of them will be needed if an answer is to be found to the Yasuda mystery. The person who has spent more time than anyone else chasing documentary evidence on the fakes is Benoit Landais. He was not trained as an art historian, but has been working on Van Gogh for the past 7 years. He is convinced that the Yasuda sunflowers is not by Van Gogh.
On two versions, there are 3 petals on the flower, the version of London and the version now in Tokyo. In the other one, of Amsterdam, there are 2. So these two are now connected. Now, if you look on the enlargement of the cover of the catalogue when it was sold, the yellow here is put over the brown, which is on the background. And that is true everywhere. Okay? It's not the way Vincent was working, because he was working by colors.
I wouldn't say it isn't a fake without having seen it and without having made very definite studies about it, but I couldn't be sure. I cannot decide everything for sure. But for me, if you want to decide anything, you should have to do a lot of technical research for the outcome to know exactly what's what.
So you don't actually exclude the possibility that this is by a different hand. You just say that you haven't seen it.
Yes.
And it's a whole puzzle that still needs to be studied.
Yes. Yes.
And when I got this catalogue, I remember having said to Miss Norman, look, it's a funny thing, I got a special catalogue by Christie of a star painting that they are going to sell, and for me it's a copy done by a clumsy artist.